From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hello and welcome back to the Anxiety Project podcast. I am your host, Brad Robinson, here with you today. This week's episode is number 73, and it's on a very powerful question. I get this question a lot. Is anxiety permanent? This was a deep belief when I was suffering from GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. I believed that my anxiety was not going away. I had it for a long time. Every day I felt sensitized to the world around me. I felt anxious continuously. I was always having panic attacks, and I believed that, this is just going to be here the rest of my life. I'm just going to walk around feeling this way. So in this podcast episode, I'm going to tackle this question and this belief many people have. So before I get into that, I'm just going to talk about my program briefly. There's a 50% off coupon code for my program at unpluganxiety.com. 50% off with promo code anxiety-free, no spaces. Anxiety-free, no spaces is the coupon code. Go to my website at unpluganxiety.com and get 50% off my program. And that's going until the end of April. So go check that out. Now, it's very rare that someone who signs up for coaching has anxiety and has everything going great in their life. And there can be times where someone is living a great and meaningful life, but is having anxiety problems. And that comes from a deeper physical level issue. But that's very rare. That's rare. People come to me with anxiety, wanting to overcome it, but then I soon find out that their lives have gotten so out of control, out of hand. Everything has gotten so chaotic in their life. And so we unravel the issues. We unravel the underlying emotional issues, and we tackle all levels of that person's life so that they can move through that anxiety towards their higher self. So when chaos emerges, when somebody is thrown into chaos, maybe it's the death of a loved one, maybe it's a job loss or a divorce, a breakup, or somebody does something that they didn't know they could do. So that would be levels of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. They do something and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that thing. And then they are thrown into the chaos. Whatever it is, that person, like my older self, I was thrown into the chaos, into the unknown. And that's just like the Hobbit story, being thrown into the unknown, thrown into the chaos. Bilbo Baggins lived in the Shire. He had everything. They partied, they drank, they ate all the foods they wanted. They lived in such a paradise, right? But then Bilbo was thrown into the unknown. He got called on out into an adventure, right? To fight the dragon of chaos. And what happens when he is thrown out into the unknown like that? Well, he's a bumbling fool. He doesn't know what to do. And so now at that point in the story, he has to develop all of these new characters characteristics, these new techniques, this new way of thinking, right? To handle that chaos. So without the right strategies, without the right techniques, and without the right resources, that person does not know how to handle the chaos. So somebody comes to me for coaching and everything just got so out of hand. They're thrown into the deepest chaos. And so now it's time to find more order and adopt more order. And so that person suffering from anxiety needs to adopt more order. They have a disorder, anxiety disorder. But let's break down disorder. Disorder. There's no order, there's disorder. So let's talk about order. Order. I was a chaotic guy. I was very chaotic. My life was chaotic. I was running around all the time. I was forgetting my car keys. I didn't get too far without my car keys, but then I would forget my wallet. I would forget my phone. I would forget important stuff before leaving the house. I wasn't eating properly. The foods I was eating every day, it was just chaos. I wasn't organized. I didn't even make my bed in the mornings. I hung around chaotic friends. So everything in my life was chaos. And that caused a lot of anxiety. I didn't know where I wanted to go in my life. There was so much chaos. So I needed order in my life. So let's talk about the yin and yang symbol for a moment. The yin and yang are two halves merging to create wholeness. Both halves chase each other until they come together. So one half of the yin and yang symbol, the black side, is chaos, and the white side of the yin and yang symbol is order, and they merge together. And the path, the meaning in life, is the fine line that runs in between them. So to find the right meaning, you have to have one foot in order and then the other foot in chaos. So you have to integrate both into your life and you will find the meaning. So think of Bilbo Baggins. He's thrown into chaos. So when he's thrown into chaos, he has to adopt so many new parts of him to add order to the chaos, right? He has to integrate and conjure up parts of him that he didn't even know existed so that he can handle the chaos that was continuously thrown at him during that adventure. He ventured out into the unknown, and you have to bring about those parts of you that you never even knew existed. So think of a cluttered room. A cluttered room is a direct reflection of the mind. So a cluttered room is disorder, right? And so once you begin to even clean up a little part of your room, what happens? You feel good. You feel good about yourself. You look at that table and you're like, there's no more cluttered papers on it anymore. It's clean, it's ordered, and you just feel mentally good. There's a dopamine kick that you get. You're proud of yourself that, I cleaned up this mess. Because if you keep avoiding that mess, that's just clutter in your unconscious mind. That's just going to add more chaos. So adding order to your life is crucial for overcoming anxiety. So you have to want to change, and you have to want to overcome anxiety. So is anxiety permanent? No, but it can be if you don't change. You have to want to change. If you're going to sign up for a coaching session, before you have to really want to change, because I can't make you change if you really don't want to. You have to want it badly. Self-defeating prophecies can keep you from changing. Saying, I tried before, but it just didn't work. Didn't work out. And this settles in their belief that they'll be like this for the rest of their life. And they're too far out into the chaos, into the unknown, into the yang, that they see no path that can lead them to their higher self. They get thrown adrift so far out into the unknown, into the chaos, like I used to. I lived very narrow-minded, right? And I was so far out into the chaos, into my anxiety disorder, right, that I didn't see a path forward until I reached rock bottom, where then I wanted to change. Once I reached that low point in my life, I then decided there's no other way. I have to change, because do I want to be like this a year from now? 2 years from now? Of course not. And that day where I decided to change, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember waking up after barely no sleep, and I couldn't even eat food. I was just so sensitized. I was scared, and I felt so lost. I felt completely lost until I reached down into me and I said, there has to be a way. And then unconsciously, I went on the internet to find answers. So then there was a part of me that responded to my distress self-talk, right? There was a part of me in my unconscious that was like, let's just go on the internet and find some answers. I need answers. I need to find a way out of this chaos. So you have to want it. You have to really want it. And then once you decide, there has to be a way, I really want to change, answers will come. They will come. So I then adopted a developing mindset. In time, it took me a few weeks, but I as soon as I was looking for the answers online, and then I found some, I realized that I was growing in some way. I was growing because I felt that the more I look into this, the more I learn from these people who overcame anxiety, the more I improve myself. So adopt a developing mindset. So a developing mindset is someone who is continuously growing. And the people that don't overcome anxiety, they stop. They stop. They believe that, I'm just going to be like this forever. I tried this thing, it didn't work, and that's that. And that's when anxiety can be permanent, right? It can be if you don't change. And some people don't change. I see people all the time who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and you can see that these people have just been the same person their whole life. They didn't adopt that developing mindset. And once you see yourself growing, once you start to change your habits, you'll say to yourself, oh, wait a minute, I actually can do this. There's that dopamine kick that comes along with that. There's that dopamine kick that goes along with that reward of completing that small goal. So reaching that small goal or feeling the change after you introduce a new habit is rewarding and keeps you driving forward. So adding more order to the disorder. Expanding your world opens the doors, right? Opens many doors. Listening to this podcast opens doors. You chose to come here and listen. You chose that because you want change. You want to grow. You want to continue to grow because you don't just do something 1 week and then say, oh, it doesn't work. It takes 21 days for a habit to become ingrained. That's a long time. So you got to stick with it. But you're going to see change come quick. Because if you suffered from anxiety for a long time and practiced anxiety for a long time, then any sort of change is going to be quite stimulating, right? It's going to stimulate new neuronal pathways within your brain. It's going to be overwhelmingly great because now you're on the road to recovery. So just listening to this podcast expands your world, opens doors, opens new knowledge, starting a new course, starting a program, introducing new habits like meditation or new role models. So getting rid of old unproductive role models and adding in new productive role models changes everything. The more you listen to people who overcame life challenges and teach you how to overcome life challenges, the more you grow and expand and move forward. So I began my recovery process just by listening to podcasts, people who overcame anxiety, and they taught me how to overcome anxiety. So I was adopting role models and I was listening to these podcasts every day, learning, writing notes. So if you're listening, you should be writing notes and listen to this podcast 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Write notes and take those notes with you when you go about your day. This is the learning process. So I needed to add more order in my life. So discipline came with that. So I needed to add more discipline in my life. Discipline fuels that developing mindset, like meditating every day, journaling every day. This was difficult for me at first, but I knew that I wanted to change so bad that I knew that doing these habits every day is going to improve my life because I attached so much pain to not changing that I just kept pushing forward. I kept doing these habits every day. I kept exercising every day. I kept meditating every day. I kept listening to podcasts every day and writing notes. It's just I wanted to change so bad. And when you take on the responsibility of your anxiety and the little things around you, like the messy room, things like that, that disorder, the more meaning comes into your life. And that was huge for me. More meaning came. And that's like Simba in The Lion King. So in The Lion King, there's a moment in the story where Simba turns into an adult, into a man, right? And there's that moment in The Lion King where he was trekking into the underworld with Rafiki, into the chaos, where he went into the underworld where there was all these branches and he was crawling through the cave with all these branches, and then he reached that pond. And that pond, in that little pool he looks into, is the symbol of the deep unconscious mind, the self. And that pool represents the unconscious, where things can be brought up to the surface. Things from your unconscious, your deep, deep unconscious mind, can be brought up to the surface. But before he gets down into the underworld, he says that he wants to change. He was looking up to the stars and he's like, I want to change. And he knew that he is not all he could be. He's not all he could be. He was looking up to the stars and he's like, I want to change. I'm not all I can be. So when you ask that and when you say that, you open the door to change. A part of you will respond to it. And Rafiki represents that. The part of Simba that responds. He's the transcendent self, the model of change, right? That the part of him that comes forth when you ask the right question. That part of you comes forth. And when that part of you comes forth, you'll perceive things differently. You'll start to perceive things differently, and you will act differently according to that aim. You begin looking at the parts of you that have yet been developed. And that was me when I reached rock bottom. I asked these questions. A part of me from the deep unconscious mind came forward and it was like, okay, let's go look on Google to find the answers. Let's go look into this book to find the answers. Let's go find a podcast to go find the answers, because that was the moment where I wanted to change. So I really asked myself, do I really want to be here in this same state 2 years from now? And I was like, no. And that was painful to realize. So at that moment, you're going to become more interested in things that help move you to the next stage. So I became interested in those podcasts about overcoming anxiety. You're here. You're interested in these podcasts because you want to overcome anxiety. So Simba looks into the pool. He travels down into that chaos, into the unknown, because he wants to change. He's following that voice, Rafiki. He's following it to the pool, to the unconscious pool. But when he looks into the pool, he only sees himself. But then Rafiki says, look deeper. Look deeper. And remember, that pool is the unconscious mind. So Rafiki's telling him, look deeper into your unconscious mind. So he begins to see the man he could be. The image in the pool changes, and he begins to see the man he could become. And then what happens? He then takes on the responsibilities he avoided in the past. He was hanging around Timon and Pumbaa, singing Hakuna Matata, living one day at a time, free of responsibilities, just impulsive pleasures on Pleasure Island, so to speak, right? But then at that moment, when he looks into the pool and his face changes, he sees the man he could be, he takes on the responsibilities of his family. His values shift. His perception shifts. Now he's not living in that impulsive world anymore. He wants to change. He took on the responsibilities now. So, is anxiety permanent? Well, not if you really want to change. And when you start these small steps, reaching these small goals, you're going to see that you actually can change. You have to prove to yourself that change is possible. So to change your external world, everything around you, you have to change your internal world. You have to look deep within your unconscious mind and really be in, you have to really ask yourself important questions so that your unconscious mind responds with the answers. And you'll find that your unconscious mind will come up with the answers. They might not be what you want, and it might be painful, but the answers will come forth. Ask a deep enough question, and you're going to find the answers, the harsh realities. Ask yourself, what would my life be like 2 years from now if I don't change my ways? Or ask yourself, what am I doing daily that is holding me back from my true potential? And these answers, some of them are not going to be what you want. You have to face the harsh reality that you're not who you could be. You're not who you could be. And that's painful. Parts of you have to die off. And then you are able to come forth from the ashes and sprout new knowledge, act differently, change your lifestyle, and adopt new responsibilities, because those responsibilities are going to add more meaning into your life. I had to change a lot of my old self, most of my old self, the negative friends, the lifestyle habits. I had to change the way I was eating. I took on meditation. I took on more exercise. I took on journaling. I took on new role models. I was trying different anxiety techniques like the elastic band technique, different CBT techniques, all of these things. I was just gradually working on myself. Not all at once. This wasn't not all at once. You need to set small enough goals. Set the bar low so that you can attain that goal. You don't want to set a bar too high. Start out small. Maybe just clean your room today. Add some more order to the chaos, and then you're going to see that change. And that's where I'm going to leave you on today's podcast episode. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Remember, go to my YouTube channel and subscribe there. I post videos all about anxiety recovery and self-help. Remember, lastly, do not let anxiety define who you are. I will see you on next week's podcast episode. Bye.
Brad's powerful anxiety recovery program is available at unpluganxiety.com. The Anxiety Project program is downloadable and puts the power of anxiety recovery in your own hands. What are you waiting for? Visit unpluganxiety.com for more details. Recovery starts now.